All right, so yesterday we got the official results on who exactly is going to be replacing the now disgraced former Prime Minister Boris Johnson to be the PM of the United Kingdom, and it's pretty much played out exactly how most people thought that it would, with Liz Truss now going to be taking up the mantle of leading the Conservative Party, as well as becoming, again, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So I got a breakdown here from NBC News in terms of how she was elected to this position, which is in and of itself an absolutely bizarre process that the UK uses in situations like this, where she wasn't actually elected by like a broad coalition of the general population of the United Kingdom, but she was elected by like a tiny fraction of a minority of basically dues-paying members to the Conservative Party, who just so happen to be disproportionately white and elderly and very wealthy and conservative as well. So that in and of itself, the election process was pretty interesting, as well as just who she is actually going to be as a leader within the United Kingdom, basically trying to portray herself as like the reincarnation of Margaret Thatcher. So, you know, to say the least, it's going to be an absolute fucking disaster for average working class people within the UK. But they give us a little bit of details here to start us off, saying that Liz Truss will be Britain's next prime minister after she was elected leader of the ruling Conservative Party on Monday, ending a race to succeed the scandal-tarnished Boris Johnson. And they say that Truss, aged 47, has served as foreign secretary and was the clear frontrunner for the job, and she clinched victory by appealing to the right-wing party faithful as a tax-cutting, anti-woke candidate who would take a hard line on post-Brexit dealings with the European Union. So a number of different things here that are kind of interesting. Number one, she's taking a very hard line on the Brexit situation, even though she was initially one of the people who voted against Brexit and leaving the European Union. So that part is kind of interesting, how she did that whole basically like huge heel turn to now try to make this broad appeal to the conservative base within the UK. But then also, you know, just boilerplate like Thatcherite politics here, or Reagan style politics for my American audience, with the tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations, and then also just of course sprinkling in a little bit of culture war nonsense there with her anti-woke crusade, which is of course very similar to the right-wing reactionary talking points that we have here in the US. But they continue saying that she inherits a country facing a dire winter energy crisis, widespread strikes, and economic recession, as well as long-term questions about the erosion of its cherished public services like the NHS, which Tories are constantly trying to gut and underfund, and also its status as a world power after Brexit. And they say that those issues were largely absent from the discussion in the 2-month leadership race, which saw her defeat the former finance minister Rishi Sunak by 57 to 43% in the runoff. And this motherfucker honestly would not have been much better than Liz Truss. I mean, it's pretty much all across the board a complete shit show within the Conservative Party over in the UK right now. But I mean, you can look at each one of these specific issues and just ask basic follow-up questions in terms of like what you're actually going to do to solve these problems, right? What is somebody like Liz Truss going to do to solve the energy crisis in the UK right now? Nothing. I mean, she's not going to do anything that is not going to hurt the profit margins of the massive corporations who are in large part driving a lot of these increases in costs for average consumers. She's against things like a windfall profits tax within the energy systems, and just pushing things like tax cuts and shit like that at a moment like this is not going to be the thing that actually meaningfully changes the economic situation that most people are facing, and definitely is not going to prevent people from suffering during this insane energy crisis that they are seeing right now over in the UK. But also will be interesting how she handles the widespread strikes that we have been seeing in the UK over the last number of months. One of the biggest ones has been the RMT, the railroad workers over in the UK, and Bernie Sanders actually went over there a couple of weeks ago to go stand in solidarity with them and encourage them to keep going with their strikes and making demands for just some very basic shit like living wages and adequate benefits so that their people can keep up with inflation that they're seeing right now within the economy. So, credit to Bernie Sanders for going over there and standing in solidarity with them. But now having somebody like Liz Truss, who is again trying to model her economic platform in the model of basically somebody like Margaret Thatcher, will be interesting to see how she handles these strikes that are going right now. I would anticipate she's going to take a very antagonistic stance towards trying to end those strikes as well. But also they have an economic recession, and again, just this Reagan style politics, Thatcherite style politics, cutting taxes for the wealthy, trickle down economics. This is never going to solve the actual underlying problems that are baked within any capitalist country across the world right now. But They continue saying that as leader of the country's largest party, she will be appointed Prime Minister by Queen Elizabeth II at Balmoral Castle in Scotland on Tuesday, a break from the tradition for the aging monarch who has always performed the royal duty in London. I honestly, as an American, not that we don't have elitists here in this country as well, but I find it absolutely bizarre that you would have like the queen of your country. First of all, that you would even still have a queen at this point in the year 2022, but that you would have to have her like go to this castle in Scotland and appoint your prime minister is also just kind of bizarre. But that wasn't even really the main problem with the electoral system that they have in place for a situation like this. But you can see here they get into more of the details in terms of how she was actually elected to be the next PM. They say that most of Britain's 67 million people had no say in Truss's ascension. Instead, she was chosen by the party's 180,000 members, who are 97% white, skew older, wealthy, and male, and tend to lean to the right of Britain's political spectrum. And they say that Truss does not appear to be hugely popular in the polls, no shit, of the broader public, and was not the top choice of her party's lawmakers, but she was the favorite of its members. And they say that the next general election might not be until early 2025, so you might be stuck with her for a while. And polls currently give the opposition Labour Party large leads over the Conservatives following the acrimony around Boris Johnson's fall. And they say that top of Truss's priorities will be the country's cost of living crisis, skyrocketing bills for food and energy, household electricity, and gas bills are set to triple over the next couple of months. And there's also fears of blackouts this winter and inflation, sending real-term wages falling. And they say millions of people may face the choice between heating their homes or feeding their families, while many small businesses say that they will fold unless the government takes action. And Truss has promised to announce her plans on the issue this week. In her acceptance speech, she vowed tax cuts and said, "I will deliver on the energy crisis." So again, I mean, you're talking about all of these different systemic issues, right? These flaws that are baked within the capitalist system and having this disproportionate authoritarian control over our economic systems, whether it's in the US or it's in the UK. And basically her economic proposal to solve the current problem that people are facing is not to actually deliver significant structural reforms or material benefits to average working class people, but is instead to give massive tax cuts to some of the wealthiest people and corporations in the country. So just an absolute fucking joke, an absolute disaster through and through. But now I want to get into this video that was done by Double Down News, who does absolutely great reporting on UK politics. And basically they give a synopsis here from this testimony of Zara Sultana, who is, I believe, an MP from London over in the UK. And she basically just thrashes both this guy, Rishi Sunak, as well as Liz Truss. But I want to just focus in quickly on the Liz Truss portion of this to show you how much of an absolute disaster she is going to be as the Prime Minister, basically just serving the elites, serving the billionaire class, and doing absolutely nothing to materially improve the lives of average working class people.
Let me tell you a story.
Whoever wins the Tory leadership race, you lose. Can you imagine Liz Truss as Prime Minister?
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace. In December, I'll be in Beijing, opening up new pork markets. And I will not rest until the British apple is back at the top of the tree.
Liz Truss cosplays embarrassingly as Margaret Thatcher, having the same anti-worker, anti-poor politics as Thatcher. She has pledged to cut tax for big businesses and increase military spending. The right-wing press are endorsing her because she is an ideologue for big business, and that's why they are her biggest supporters. We have the worst cost of living crisis in history and record-breaking temperatures. Instead of addressing the climate emergency and the cost of living crisis, Tory candidates are launching a war on woke and waging class war, slashing taxes for the super rich, but attacking the living standards of everyone else. They are all Thatcherite ideologues, beholden to the super rich class that they belong to their donors and the billionaire press barons. They have now conveniently distanced themselves from Boris Johnson when they all supported his leadership and his policies.
The Prime Minister has my total support.
The Prime Minister has my 100% support. He is doing an excellent job.
Who here would be happy to have Boris Johnson in their cabinet? Please raise your hands. If he wished to serve, would you have Boris Johnson in your cabinet if you were PM? not a single person.
Rishi Sunak, the wealthiest
All right, so then she gets into Rishi Sunak a little bit there, so I'll cut it off there. But, I mean, yeah, at the end of that clip, just a bunch of fake friends, right? Initially claiming that they were standing 100% behind Boris Johnson. Then as he's, like, becoming this disgraced prime minister, has all of these scandals surrounding COVID and the parties and his hiring of that one motherfucker who had, like, a sexual abuse scandal and stuff like that. It all just ended up piling up, and then they, jumped ship as the fake friends that they are, and then immediately began this process of trying to claw back at power and see who could take the mantle after he was gone. So it looks like, again, we've ended up with Liz Truss, who is now going to be, for the foreseeable future, at least I guess until 2025 when they have more elections, is going to be the Prime Minister of the UK. And as I were just pointing out in that video there from Double Down News, it is going to be an absolute fucking disaster for any working class people across the country. I mean, you have this ongoing strike with the RMT union, and having somebody who is much more antagonistic towards workers, that is going to be a significant problem. You have the ongoing efforts to gut the public services within the UK, especially things like the National Health Service, which is widely popular in the UK. So pushing austerity on things that actually materially benefit working class people while giving tax cuts to the wealthy and big business and corporations within the United Kingdom. Basically just doing, again, like Reaganomics, Reagan-style politics, trickle-down economics, whatever you want to call it. It is 100% bullshit, and it is not going to materially improve the lives of average people within the UK. And, we're going to have to see some significant pushback against this. Maybe if there was a more widespread labor movement that would help in this process, but it looks like you guys are stuck with just an absolute fucking disaster for the foreseeable future.